So it must go on to say.
Let's just, right before the holidays,
Whatever.
Emergency and yeah.
Well, it was his plan. They told us
3 more weeks, but
the semester's coming up. We're gonna fill in the plane and then fly to Seattle.
Oh. And no, oh, yeah,
So
because
Julie
Julie
continues to
15 minutes up, down, and then 20 minutes up and down.
well, it's very good, like 20-minute flights. Yeah.
Call the Hermiston City Council meeting for November 28th, 2022 to order with a declaration of quorum. We're going to excuse Councilors Peterson and Councilor Hart. Please join me in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lily really can't move those around anymore, can she? All right, Mr. Smith, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No.
Okay. First up on our agenda is an update from the Hermiston Chamber of Commerce. I see Val out there. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's so lovely here.
Push the button. That way we can hear you a little bit. Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yep, thank you. Welcome.
All right. I'm excited for this opportunity to share with you what's going on at the Chamber. We have been busy. I'll just give you a glimpse of some things that we have coming up. But if you have questions, feel free to stop me and I'll answer them. The next thing we have coming up is Peppermint Lane out at EOTech. I don't know if any of you were able to join that last year, but it was lovely. It's kind of just our give back to the community. In February, we have a Q&A. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Paid Leave Act that is coming up and Oregon Saves. It'll affect the businesses in our community. So we've asked some state representatives to come do a Q&A for about 3 hours. So everybody can just ask the questions they need to ask. Oregon Saves goes in effect in May, but I think the Paid Leave Act starts in January.
It does.
Yes, and I don't believe you can claim until September, but January, the deductions will start, so businesses need to be up on that. We've been partnering with the city in a few things. We'll talk about one of those tonight that I hope comes to fruition. I'm excited about that. We've had 2 luncheons lately. They were huge successes. HR is the topic that most people are asking for, so we'll continue on that employee retention topic. The second Wednesday of every month, we have an employee specialist come to the chamber and sit for about 3 hours. Employees and employers are welcome to stop in. It's like an open house if you're searching for employees or if you're searching for work. So it's a workforce specialist that can connect those people together. I'd encourage everybody to spread the word about that, but it's a great need in the community. Obviously, we all know that's an issue. Last spring, we hosted some classes from the high school several times. I look forward to doing that again. It's their hospitality class. They come out, they find out about ribbon cuttings and open houses and how the chamber serves the hospitality end of the community. It's really fun. We love that. So we're looking forward to that again. And ambassadors, they're just growing like crazy. I had 2 apply today. I look to restructure that and shape it a little. It's a fun group of people that really do support the community. So that's exciting. And of course, as always, we have ribbon cuttings, open houses, lots of groundbreaking. Looking forward to more of those. Yeah, I think that about covers the next 6 months or so for the chamber. We always fill in little things here and there, but always open for questions too.
All right, thank you, Val. What is Peppermint Lane?
Peppermint Lane. That's, as I said, kind of a give back to the community for Christmas, but it's 4 chalets, and it's at EOTech. You can sit there and have hot cocoa, sit by a fire, and enjoy the lights. It's just a nice evening to spend networking, talking with people.
Gotcha. And that's open when?
That will be open. We're really trying to firm up those dates. It'll only be 2 weekends. I think the weekend of the 9th and the 16th. Those Fridays and Saturdays from 4 to 10.
Okay.
And you know, on that note, tomorrow we have Marlette Holmes volunteered 8 of their production staff to come help us put it together for Giving Tuesday. So.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very nice of them.
I think she's hoping for another big Hermiston win when they do that.
Yeah, last year was a fun win-win. Knocked them all down last year. We weren't able to open for one of the weekends. It was like a domino effect, but yeah.
Now, I do get your email updates, and I can see how busy you guys have been. So thank you for your community engagement and all the good things that you do for the community. Any other questions from the council? We'll bring you back up later when we talk about another agenda item.
Yeah, I look forward to that. All right,
Thanks,
thanks,
Val.
guys.
All right, we're now at the first opportunity for citizen input. If there are members of the audience tonight that would like to speak to the council regarding items that aren't on our current agenda, please come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name and address, and direct your comments to me. Try and limit them to less than 5 minutes. All right. Seeing none, I'm going to move on to consent agenda. Do we have any items we need to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, any public comment on consent agenda items A, B, or C? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Then moved by Councilor Duran, second by Councilor Spicer-Coon, that we approve the consent agenda items A, B, and C as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. On to ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 2246, establishing the necessity for a sewer main easement. Mr. Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will let Mr. Morgan walk us through this one.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Reason I wanted to bring up the pages here. This is my first time trying this out on
Did you practice, Mark?
I thought that I practiced it. Rather than having things preloaded, I could just pull up things from the agenda right here. So. Yes, as was mentioned, so this resolution is a resolution of necessity, basically establishing that it's necessary for public health and safety to acquire this easement for a sewer main. It's basically in the vicinity of McDonald's and the Sherwin-Williams paint store. This easement would allow us to relocate the sewer main that runs through that area onto a small sliver of property that currently is owned by a trust that is leasing their space to the Sherwin-Williams paint store. And so the reason for the need for that easement is that section of sewer main really needs to be replaced. Our sewer crews are out there. It's on what they refer to as their bad lines list, which means they have to send the vacuum truck out there and clean it out on a consistent basis, if not monthly. And so what I wanted to pull up here, included in your staff report, back when we did the sewer collection system master plan, we sent a video camera down several of the sections of sewer main that mainly focused on the ones that were identified as the bad lines list. And so all of these images that you can see here are directly from the section that we would be replacing that comes out of the McDonald's area and flows north to Cornell. These basically begin here heading from south to north. So this is on the south end, it's flowing north to get to the sewer main that's located there in Cornell. You can see there's obviously some significant holes. This is an intrusion probably from the Sherwin-Williams store connecting into the sewer main there, but it causes blockages and backups and those types of things. You can see the gaskets here are failing. And then it really starts to get bad in this vicinity here because, as I mentioned, the direction of flow is this direction. And so you can see there's effluent in the pipe, and this is downstream, and there's no flow there. So it's obviously exfiltrating somewhere along the line there because that section of pipe is completely dry. So there's definitely a need for getting that section of pipe replaced. As I mentioned in the staff report, you can see we considered several different options really before getting to this point of looking at acquiring an easement across the Sherwin-Williams property. And really none of them are desirable, and that's why we're here at this point now to acquire the easement. The other options would be simply open trenching across Highway 395, right there by the Elm 395 intersection, there by McDonald's and Jack in the Box. It's certainly a lot more expensive. Dealing with that right away gets really expensive, but obviously would cause very significant traffic challenges in our by far most heavily trafficked intersection. So that's a challenge. One of the other options that we looked at on that same vein of crossing 395 is what they refer to as pipe bursting, where they go in, there is an existing main across 395 that we could tap into, and then you just basically inflate that pipe and using air pressure, burst the pipe, put in a new a pipe basically with a resin inside of there. So that's possible, but the reason why that one's not desirable is, one, it's certainly much more costly than trenching across the Sherwin-Williams property, but also it would still pose some challenges with adjacent property owners, because in order to do that pipe bursting, we would still need to acquire at least temporary work easements to dig pits on either side of that pipe there at 395, and so we'd still be dealing with private property owners. And so the question, we could still end up right back in the same situation if we weren't able to acquire those temporary work easements. And so this final solution here is what we arrived at. City staff has been working for, almost a year at this point, trying to secure this easement. And it's been a little bit of a unique one because the property is owned by a trust and all of our conversations with the representatives of the property owners have not necessarily been averse to granting the easement. It sounds like a lot of the challenge has simply been that because it's owned by several people in the form of a trust, they can't necessarily agree on what they do with the proceeds when they or appoint a trustee in order to facilitate distributing the proceeds from that. And then, the final aspect of that is we're really not talking about a huge sum of money here. I mean, it's probably going to be less than $10,000 is the cost of the easement. And so I think that's one of the other reasons why the members of the trust don't really see it as worth their time and effort to go through the process with their legal folks to help facilitate this easement. And so what this resolution this evening does is it begins the process for condemnation of the easement, where the city would essentially file with the court, say this is necessary for public health and safety in order to acquire this easement. And so, and that's of course my fellow. Answer it, Rich. It's probably my wife.
I'm trying to hit the right buttons, but
but anyway, so this would begin the process of getting that started so that we file with court. We say, here's how much we believe the easement is worth, and then we deposit an amount that the easement is worth with the court, and then that allows the members of the trust to work with the court to receive their compensation for the easement. So that's where we're at this evening. I'd stand for any questions.
Mark, can you show us the actual crossing and how much property we're talking about?
Yeah. So you can see there, we're north is at the top of the page. This is Cornell Place. This is the Sherwin-Williams property. The front of the Sherwin-Williams property is on the south side here, so this is the back side there. And so the area that we're talking about is really just this hashed location right there. So it doesn't cross, and I think that's part of the reason why in our conversations with the members of the trust, with the representative of the trust, is they're not necessarily opposed to the easement because it's really on the sliver of that property located there. It's an underground utility easement. But yeah, we're really just talking about that small sliver located right there.
So they'll still be able to build on it if they, I mean, it's too close to the roadway probably, but they'd still be able to drive on it, or, I mean, it's underneath the ground. We're just
Yeah,
tearing
and
it
we
down.
do things like
Place it.
parking on it and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's in grass right now.
Yeah, it's in grass.
So you're talking, what, 50 square feet maybe?
It's in that range, yeah.
Any other questions, councilors?
So would you be looking to just condemn that narrow sliver, or would you be
Yeah.
seeking some additional easements for working, or?
I believe we're just looking for just that sliver because we do have enough space in the ODOT right away for doing the temporary work in that easement.
And it would just be a condemnation for the easement, so for the space under the ground.
Correct, yep.
Any other questions, councilor?
I was surprised, I guess there's no trustee for the trust?
Yeah, and Mr. Tubby's been the one who's been working directly. Maybe he can answer a little bit more on how those conversations have gone.
lights off. So that is the major issue that we run into is essentially having trustees that can sign off. The individual that I've worked with, and it's an interesting situation. There's actually two trusts. Both of the owners of those trusts have passed away. So now we are working with trustees. One of the trusts has a trustee, and that's who we thought initially owned this property. Under the tax lot map, I believe it's under one of the owners, and so we worked with that trustee, and we got to the point where we actually had the easement agreement written up. It had been kind of proofed back and forth between myself and another attorney. And then, as they looked at it, they realized, well, that individual didn't have the actual authority to sign off on a property agreement. And so that got us to the point, well, who's the trustees of the other? And they didn't have any. They're working maybe to have a bank or somebody be able to appoint trustees that could work with us. But we don't know what that time frame is necessarily. And so, and I guess part of the presentation going through this route isn't going to preclude us from also negotiating. I mean, if they can put those trustees in place, we can still negotiate and move forward. This is just allows the process to move forward if needed. But yeah, definitely didn't get the answers out of the attorney that we needed. So we're still working that angle as well.
Other questions, Councilman?
A lot, but I'll reserve that.
Okay, so there is some recommendations on here. I would take public comment if there's any public comment. Okay, can I get a recommendation from Councilman?
I say approve. I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved to approve Resolution 2246 by Councilor Davis, seconded by Councilor Duran. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. So now we're going to move on to discussion and possible support of Hermiston Adopt a Street program in conjunction with the Hermiston or Greater Hermiston Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Val and I started this conversation a few months ago about, efforts that we could make as a community to help clean up the streets and do some things. And so near the end of October, she sent what was included in your packet as a formal proposal for an Adopt a Street program. And it would be a partnership. The city would do some things, and the chamber would be the most active as far as signing up people and then supplying the trash bags and so forth. But as outlined, what we would, the portions that we would propose would be, first, that we focus on the high traffic streets, that we start off with those. If we want to at some point in the future move to more residential, we could do that, but starting out on some of our high volume streets, parties would register with the chamber. We would have a map that would show them what the streets were available, but also who has adopted any streets. We would supply bags, vests, all the tools that would be needed, and then they would check the interested parties would check those out from the chamber and return them after, and then after they were done, we'd get notification where the bags were, and our staff would go out and take care of those the bags and dispose of them. And then we would do some some form of a thank you each year of those groups that participate. Now, because this is really the first time we've had this discussion with the council, what we were looking for tonight would be just direction to put more of a formal agreement together based on these parameters, and then if there's some other ideas that come up, that we could include those as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Sounds like a wonderful program, and if we can get volunteers engaged and involved in a community and taking ownership in our streets and helping us in that process to keep us as clean and pretty looking as possible, I think it's a valuable asset to our community. A couple questions that I had. Would there be some sort of signage and recognition of the groups that were sponsoring certain sections?
At this point, the recognition would be on the webpage, and we'd be able to do social media posts related to that. This really kind of keeps the cost of the program a little bit lower. That's where we wanted to start.
Okay. And the other question I had was, have we looked at requirements for participation? I mean, sometimes you get programs started people get excited, they show up one time and then never do it again. And so are we going to make sure people are following through with their commitment, and what's that look like as far as holding people accountable?
Yeah, we didn't put any of that kind of into here, but talking about, you know, that they needed to go out twice a year or some requirement like that. And then if they didn't meet that requirement, then they wouldn't be eligible to, you know, reapply for the next year or something along those lines.
How about other questions from the council? Yeah.
I don't know if this would come in yet or not, but what about like weeds removal, tripping hazards with weeds that are as tall as the person walking?
And actually, that was, as we were talking about this from a staff standpoint, that was one of the things that came up is including that in the language. That be one of the things that they would look at doing is removing weeds or
Right.
things like that in the sidewalk, because that's one of the problems that we see.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so most of this stuff is just public right-of-ways.
Correct. We wouldn't be on anybody's private property.
Other questions from council? So as far as the fiscal responsibility, looks like most of that's on the city, right? We're making the contribution. And then as far as the management, organization, and sign-up, and that sort of stuff, logistics, that's the partnership with the chamber.
Correct.
Val, did you want to speak to this at all?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say I appreciate the consideration from the councilors and mayor on this. This is a passion of mine. I implemented something similar at my last position, and it gained popularity as the time went on, and I found that more people participated rather than backed out. As Byron said, I believe that you have to have the commitment of twice a year, and if they don't do that, there's no participation the following year. So really, other than that, the questions and the shape will come from the community as we move along, and from you as counselors and mayor. But I do appreciate you guys giving us some thought, because it's, I think, valuable to the community.
And your board is in support of this program and sponsoring it, and your participation in it, obviously.
Yes, I
So it's already
head
gone
the
through your
board.
board. Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. How about other questions from the council? It sounds like a great idea to partner with our chamber and develop deeper relationships and working partnerships. So we appreciate the chamber bringing this forward, and we appreciate City Manager Smith for working with Val on trying to come up with a proposal that would meet the needs of the community. So I think it's a wonderful idea. So thanks for your leadership on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other public comment? So we're looking for a motion of support for that tonight. Is that what
Just to kind of give us direction, we'd like you to come back with, then we'll come back with a more formal agreement.
Should we get consensus or an actual motion?
Yeah, a motion would be great, just kind of.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilor Primer, seconded by Councilor Spicer-Coon, that we support the proposed program and direct staff to prepare a formal agreement with the chamber for adoption. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you to the chamber. Yeah, so tell your board we appreciate their support and guidance in helping us develop this program. Beautification is passionate to me, so I appreciate the fact that you're working on that, so thank you. Okay, October 2022 financial report. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, Mr. Katie.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Little information before I start. I checked today, and as of the 21st of November, we had received 5.6 million of our projected 6.7 million in property tax so far this year, which represents more than 80% collected through last week. A lot of folks are paying early. Also, too, on November 16th, the Office of State Treasurer, Local Government Investment Pool raised their rates to 2.85%, which is the 11th increase in their rate since October 31st of last year. So they're moving slowly up the curve, but we are doing better with our investment pool in the neighborhood of 3.5% to 4%. So the last time, let's see, October 31, it was at 0.45% a year ago, and now it's up to 2.85. So you can see everything happening with the coming recession and some fears people have. Just thought I'd share that with you at this point. So going forward, we always start with the Hermiston Urban Renewal Agency. Nothing exciting. This is October. Next month you will see the revenue come in from property taxes. I did not have the time to find out what those numbers were, but I'm sure that we will meet them or exceed them on the revenue side. Have not had a lot of expenditures so far through the first third of the fiscal year. General fund resources, you can see this month that there's a drop-off in revenue, and as I looked at the cause of this, I found a couple of main trends. One, our projection that we used is based on 3 years, and the last 18 to 24 months has been skewed by COVID collections. So we had wonderful numbers for the first 3 months. We had some agreements paid early, and now we're seeing the result of what historically happened did not happen. I have no concerns that we're not going to meet our revenue goals. We're actually 2% ahead of the year. The other is that there have been some franchise payments made earlier than in past years. In this year. So those are two big reasons our projection is a little off. Other than that, I don't have any concern because we're still almost $500,000 ahead on where we thought we would be this year based on historical precedent. On the expenditure side, I will always tout the department heads that are responsible for maintaining discipline in their spending. We're doing pretty good. We're almost, for all intents and purposes, statistically right on the button at 0.2% below what we projected through these 4 months of this year. The detail, because I can't fit the whole thing on there, I just pick up what we call administration, public services, public safety, and non-departmental. You can see public services is kind of in the hole by 180-something thousand. That's because there have been a lot of programs in Parks and Rec and still some expenses left over from when the pool was open the first part of October. Those will mitigate over the coming months. You can see public safety, administration, and non-departmental. We haven't been spending the money quite as much as we had planned. We're still sitting pretty good at 0.7% for the period in question. Below. General fund balance, it's in good shape relative to our minimum reserve requirement, and with property tax revenues coming in, I'm pretty sure we're going to be sitting real well. It may be over $8 million collected, or will be almost $8 million in the general fund when we add those collections potentially. We're in good shape at calendar year end to start the new calendar year for certain. Utility and street funds report, all these funds are in good shape, even with lower than projected year-to-date revenues in streets and regional water. We know the regional water situation is what it is. There have been some payments from the state that have been slow in coming in on the street side in gas taxes. But you can look at all the expenditures, virtually all of them are below budget. They just haven't been spending the money, not that they won't before the end of the year. But right now, they're sitting very well as far as the expenditure side. And then because I like to keep you current on our construction projects, I have taken down to highlighting in your financial report, not only bolding, but also highlighting in yellow, so Mr. Morgan can see what he's talking about when he gives you an explanation of the updates.
Well, in college, I did take a newspaper design class, so I'm graphically inclined. So the North First Place roadway construction project, it's one that you're all well aware of, that we've been talking about for quite a while. That one should go out to advertisement here in December, opening bids in January, and potentially award by council at your second council meeting in January or your first council meeting in February. Other than that, it should move along and get wrapped up before the end of the calendar year in 2023. One thing we were mentioning or discussing during the Public Infrastructure Committee meeting is you'll remember that the North First Place project is tied very closely with the lift station number 3 and lift station number 6 project that are generally located and causing traffic disruptions there at First and Ridgeway. We're hopeful that the contractor for the lift station number 6 project will wrap up entirely here the 3rd week in December, and we'll be able to reopen the entirety of North First Place to traffic for 2 or 3 months, potentially, depending on how quickly the North First Place roadway contractor can get mobilized and get in there and start construction potentially in March or April. So we will have that roadway reopened. We've been very aware of the impacts that having the roadway closed causes to the businesses in that area. So even though it's a few months, at least it gets it back open a little bit for the folks in that vicinity. Also, that on the lift station number 6 project, with lift station number 3's boring completed, that allows now the contractor for lift station number 6 to proceed with their work. They had to wait for the lift station 3 project to proceed. So they're now moving forward, and like I mentioned, they should wrap up here about the 3rd week of December. The McDonald's and 395 sewer main replacement project, that's the one that we just discussed here this evening. That project has been nearly entirely designed and just waiting on the final acquisition of the necessary easements in order to make that project proceed. Now the council has approved that easement acquisition. We should also get to advertising that project here probably in January timeframe, with work taking place probably in the late spring of this coming year. And then the lift station number 3 project, the boring has been completed. The contractors completely filled in their boring pits. Everything's leveled out. It hasn't been resurfaced yet, but we do anticipate once the lift station number 6 project is completed, we'll put a temporary cold mix patch over the top of that so the traffic can use it there for several months. That lift station number 3 project is not complete because the rest of the project requires actual paving, mainly in Ridgeway there between Holiday Inn Express and the AutoCool building. And so that project, everything west of the railroad tracks has been completed. And so now they've just winterized the project to wait and finish the work that needs to be done east of the railroad tracks in the spring. So once the asphalt plant's open back up, then they'll get into Highway 395 to decommission that lift station that's located in the traffic lane there on 395 in the spring. So that one should wrap up here mid to late spring in 23.
Mark, when you say decommission, do cities ever just leave that stuff? Or is it a requirement, a permit or a process that the state says you have to take that stuff out of there?
Yeah, so we'll take everything out of it entirely. It's completely corroded, and it's basically, it would just be a big hole in the ground. And so we'll just be filling it up with concrete and making it traffic rated again. So,
I mean, instead of going through the effort of tearing it all apart and taking it out of there, why not just leave it?
yeah. Well, again, like I said, because ODOT requires us that we have our utility in the roadway there, so we have to decommission it formally with them so that when they come through and do things like resurfacing the roadway and that type of thing, they don't have it included in anything that they have to take into account with their utilities.
Other questions? Thanks, sir. Thank you, sir. Are you finished with your report?
I'm done.
Okay, what about your, you had mentioned the investment portfolio. That's not on this one.
That's not.
Well, that's not a
It's
financial.
only a quarterly.
Okay, that's quarterly.
Right.
All right.
You'll get that next month.
Okay. I did have a couple questions though for you, Mr. Case.
Yes, sir.
So in the Urban Renewal Agency, the Gateway project, when is that expected to start? I see that's in our budget. Do you have some?
I will defer to Mr. Spencer.
Yeah.
Anderson Perry has started their design work on that, and we have a formal kickoff scheduled for December 6th.
Okay.
So we are moving forward on that.
So we can expect to see that project develop sometime in the spring or something?
Every time we have talked, yeah, we thought that we would be able to get it done this fiscal year.
Excellent.
We'll see if that happens, by the time you do the bidding, but it'll certainly be done by fall, if not done by the beginning of spring.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. A couple other questions. What is transportation? When we look at our expenses on transportation, is that the money that we just pass through for the HART program, or what is that?
Transportation has to do with taxi service, airport. Help me, Mr. Morgan. What else is there on?
It's the bus service and
Yeah,
the
bus
taxi
Yeah.
program.
And it's 62% over budget. I was just wondering why.
We have had a big fuel purchase out at the airport.
Well, there's airport, is that separate from transportation? Because I
No,
see
that's-
both those line items on there.
That would sum
What page are
up.
you looking at?
I'm looking at page 36 of 42, section 9 on B.
Okay.
Under monthly financial report, general fund expenditure details by department.
Let me get my.
It's down 62%. Right?
So the transportation, yeah, says it's
Right, we,
over budget by 62%. So we spent year to date 130 and we expected 79.
Mm-hmm. Looking for my copy. I don't have it with me.
Yeah, so that's most likely, again, when you look at the projected year-to-date column, that's based on, at this point in time for the month, when we pay Kayak for the bus service, we pay them quarterly. And so I think what's probably occurred there, and I can go back and double check, but we pay them quarterly for the entire contract. And I think we may have already made 2 quarterly payments, but it was only through October of this year, so.
Gotcha.
We have made 2 quarterly payments. That's part of it. Also, we had the fuel bill that came through on the airport.
So then on the airport, that was my next question. So on the airport line, we're 66% over budget. Is that because
that's the
fuel
timing
costs?
of the fuel
Okay.
purchase.
So it's not, we're still gonna fall in line with budget by the end of the year. It's not a
Yes.
trend that we're gonna see the rest of the year.
And always keep in mind, what you see as the expense here, you do not see the detail on the revenue that's generated, because the airport's way up on revenue as far as fuel sales, as well as in the taxi ridership, it's doing pretty good too. So I want to make sure you understand both sides of the equation.
Yeah, I like to see us be over budget on expenditures at the airport when we're purchasing fuel, because it's counterintuitive, but our actual gallons of fuel sold, it's not just the fact that we've spent more money on fuel and then consequently brought in more revenue on fuel, we're actually selling more gallons of fuel by quite a bit. And a lot of that has to do with our operator up there at the airport has been working with an outfit out of Yakima to bring down, it's called Cub Crafters, and they make these specialty airplanes. In order to get them certified and take delivery, you have to put 40 hours in them. And if you put in those 40 hours in a non-sales tax state, you don't have to pay the 8% sales tax that you would if you were in Yakima. And the Hermiston Airport's the closest one to Yakima to be able to do that. And so they come down here and buy a lot of fuel while they certify their airplanes.
Perfect. Mr. Kerman?
Yeah, I have a question going back to the urban renewal. Thank you. In that, it's you stated that there was no mention of no costs, or we had not put any facade grants out. But it seems to be we have. I didn't see that up there.
We have granted them, but they have not turned in the receipts to get their
We haven't had
expenses.
to pay out on it yet.
Right.
All right, so that's why I was confused, because
Right.
I knew we had done it,
That's correct.
but it's not showing up there, so I was.
Right. They have to expend the money, bring us the receipts, and then we
Okay,
pay them.
all right, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions on the financial report? Thank you, Mr. Kane.
Thank you, sir.
Any public comment on the October 2022 financial report? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the October 2022 financial report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Davis, second by Councilor Duran to accept the October 2022 financial report as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. So on to committee reports. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go.
Yes.
I attended the Hispanic Advisory Committee. Unfortunately, we did not have a quorum, but we still have members of the community attend, a few of them or actually a person from Uvalde. And I also shared the Christmas Express information. I received information from Mr. Cummings, and Mr. Sherman also called me to let me know that he was not able to come to the meeting. So I shared the information that he sent to me. And Mr. Evanston, if I share erroneous information, please feel free to correct me. But in the past, the Christmas Express has distributed about 500 boxes of food. And this year, the challenge is up to 700. I stress the fact that the referral for someone to receive the food comes from counselors, so mainly, the schools, social services, and civic groups. So I distributed the application to those members because Uvalde has, a lot of good rapport with our Guatemalan families and some other folks from the community as well. And so it was well received, and we hope that, I stress that donation piece also, that it was very important. So people asked a few questions, and with Louie's help, we were able to address those. And I also shared, or we heard, about the warming station opening up December 1st, and I'm excited about that because the weather has been crazy. It's been cold, and now it's been snowing, so it's really neat to see. And then I was just looking, speaking of the warming station and stepping stones, tomorrow is when they have their groundbreaking at noon, so not to steal your thunder, Mr. Spicer. But that is something that we talked about. And Martha's House, Mr. His name escapes me, Gamalski, shared that they have 18 rooms at Martha's House, and 14 of those were already filled. So he was excited to report that, and that they were waiting to get more applications. That usually the process takes about 3 days for someone to be, accepted into Martha's House. So that's the information that I wanted to share.
Excellent. Others, councilors? We did have a public infrastructure committee meeting this evening. We went through the status of the infrastructure projects. We have about $10 million worth of infrastructure projects on task for this year. About half of that is funded through federal or state dollars. So the rest of it is funded through the sewer and wastewater and water rates. And so approximately $2 million per year in improvements to each of those programs. So we went through different phases of where we're at on those projects. Got a lot of improvements going on within the community, so we just kind of went through an update, and we'll be bringing back an update to the council February-ish.
Hopefully we'll have it for one of your council meetings in January, when you also do your annual rate adjustment adoption.
Okay, perfect. So we had a brief conversation about that. It sounds like the rates are coming down slightly, so hopefully I don't want to promise that the rates are coming down. That's not what I meant. I meant the CPI number is coming down. So that will help compared to last year. We had a pretty significant jump last year in the CPI. CPI. So that coming down will help with the overall rates that we pass along to the consumer. So that's good news. Mr. Spicer-Coon, you got there at the end. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't. All I really got to enjoy was the discussion of Gear and Harper Road.
Yeah, we
again.
did have a brief conversation about Gear and Harper Road and pushed it off a couple of years to 24, 25 timeline. I'm going to move on to do we have any other committee reports? No, the mayor's report. I did go to NLC conference, National League of Cities conference in Kansas City this year. Thank you to the council for allowing me to do that and participate. A couple interesting projects that I got to observe. They had a tour there of a Veterans Home project. I toured the one in Bend during the League of Oregon Cities one. This one was a little larger. It was about 50 housing units for veterans. They also had some wraparound services there for veterans as well. So just a whole slew of different resources for veterans that were struggling, including some drug and alcohol counseling services, but also just financial services and a food pantry and financial assistance to help with bills and just transitional workplace engagement. And so it was a big project. So it was interesting to see what Kansas City is doing for the veterans. Probably one of the best classes that I went to also dealt with homelessness and area around Nashville. Can't remember the exact Knoxville. So it was a presentation, a panel presentation, and it was really well done. We're hoping to bring at least one of the speakers, if not a couple of them, out to the League of Oregon Cities in the future, because it was a great conversation around how they're collaborating, working together as a region and having some success with the drug and alcohol transitions and challenges that they're addressing with their homelessness population as well. And so it's just a really good program. In fact, there was a lot of tears that were shed during the speech, and one of the speakers got very passionate because his brother, it's personal to him, and his brother had been an abuser for quite a long time in alcohol and substance abuse. And so he was pretty passionate about it and broke down, and there was a lot of tears and sniffling going on in the room. So it was good. The place was packed. There was standing room only, so it was a good event. It was cold in Kansas City. I don't know if you've ever been to Kansas City in November, but it was cold. Yeah, once and only once. So they have a football stadium that's outside too, right? I'm not sure I'm going to go to any
Get a
football
game on
games.
that Sunday night.
I was going to mention something about the PATH project too. We have the groundbreaking tomorrow, 12:15.
It's going to be at noon.
Noon. Right at noon.
Initially, I thought 12:15, but
Okay. And it's at Lind and Bensel Road, right at the corner. There'll be some sort of,
if you can get to that intersection, you should see it.
okay, Lind and Bensel Road, 12 o'clock tomorrow. We'll do a groundbreaking for the PATH project. The Christmas celebration, that's this,
Right, this Thursday, 5:30 is when the parade starts.
and that's going to start where?
It'll start over near the community center, but it'll come down, basically downtown, down Main Street, and then after that, and whenever Santa can make it, we'll do the tree lighting.
Okay, so we'll have an official tree lighting. There'll also be music.
Yeah, I believe some of the high school groups will be there performing.
Excellent. And I saw the trees out there. I went out and walked the area.
Yeah.
It's different this year.
Yes.
Looks like it may last a little longer. So is that something unique that the city is doing this year, or?
Just trying to make it better every year.
Okay. Okay, if you guys haven't checked it out yet, it's a pretty perfect tree. So.
Yeah, we were running out of some of the less perfect trees. So we needed to have a backup
Definitely an
plan.
evergreen, that's for sure. And then the Christmas Express stuffing packages.
Right, that's the 14th?
13.
13th.
Wednesday the 13th, right? Okay. And sounds like we've got a couple hundred more boxes to do this year. No.
No.
500 still?
Yeah, I'll be having a face-to-face with a retired pastor tomorrow.
Okay. All right, still 500 boxes is a lot, so December 13th, put that on your calendar as well. And I also wanted to give council a heads up, I won't be here for the first meeting of December, so I'll need Councilor Primer hopefully to step in for me. So I won't see you guys till after the first of the year then. So we'll have a meeting. Remember, our second meeting is canceled in December. I do need your committee requests. So if you would like a different committee, or you want to stay in the same committees, let me know. So I'll be assigning those at the first meeting in December. And I also need to know the new counselors' committee requirements or requests. So if you can.
She's already notified him once, we'll review.
And see if there's some committees that they would like to sit on. And then we'll also be electing a president at that first meeting, so think about that as well. May not be. Like to give everybody a chance. Okay, how about counselor reports? Anyone? Do you want to talk about your NLC experiences?
I do not.
Transportation was challenging to Kansas City.
I did actually attend, when I got the equipment to do so, I did attend some seminars on homelessness and mental health, and I found that one very, very interesting. And they gave a lot of tips on partnering with other partners to take some of the stress off of the police department. And it was a very, very interesting one. And we also attended several different meetings.
We do on the workforce.
Yes, and the workforce, for small cities. And found out that, every small city has the same problems.
Yeah. In small cities at the NLC level, it's 50,000.
Exactly, so yeah.
It's a little bit unique. Did you guys stick around and see the Nelly concert?
It was so loud.
It
was so loud.
Nelly was last on the
We
lineup.
were there till 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
She had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
They were saying it was coming. I don't know if it was.
Oh my
God.
All right, any other committee reports? Yes.
Not a committee
I'm sorry,
report.
not committee reports, council report? Sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Marlene Holmes and the employees that went to Funland Park, Blue Park, to help raise the leaves. I read the article and it looked like, the employees really enjoyed, with the cleanup, felt like they were contributing back to the community. So I want to thank Marlene Holmes for thinking, about that. I know that was probably a huge help to the Parks and Rec Department, as during this time of year, there's a lot of leaves that get blown all over the place. So a heartfelt thanks to her.
Yeah, that's all on that. Thank you to them. They're doing something else. Somebody else, I think Val mentioned that they're partnering with you guys to help on another project.
Peppermint Lane.
Peppermint Lane, that's right.
Just to tag on that, I have to say Marlette is committed to giving their employees paid days off to mandatory and nonprofit help.
Awesome.
So yes, Marlette is really
I
a
think
fantastic person that can.
employers too that are doing something similar. I think Amazon does something as well. And so it's good to see our local community employers allowing their employees to give back to the community and public service. So thank you to those members, those business members that do that. Other council? No. Youth advisory report. I don't see youth advisors tonight. Lily, do we have all of them canceled this evening?
I did not hear anything.
Did not hear anything from youth advisors. So maybe we need to follow up and find out how we postpone. And Mr. Smith, manager's report.
Well, you covered the groundbreaking for PATH and the tree lighting. The only other thing I just wanted to let the council know, we should have the third screen in here for our next meeting. They're coming in this week to install it and then do our final training on how to operate this fancy system, so.
So Mark will be attending that training? How about punch list items? How are we doing there?
Continuing to chip off here and there, little ones here and there, but then there's been a few that have just been sitting out for a long time we're waiting on, so.
No final checks written.
No, we still have a good chunk of their money.
Good. All right, anything else, Mr. Smith?
That's it.
Okay, we do have an executive session scheduled this evening, so I am going to recess the city council meeting for executive session. The city council of the city of Hermiston will now meet in executive session in the executive session room for the purpose of discussing matters pertaining to negotiating real property transactions. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192-6602E, which allows the council to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the council to negotiate real property transactions. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are excluded. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No final decisions may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, the council will return to open session, which the audience may attend. The executive session will last approximately 10 minutes. adjourned. We are going to come out of executive session, reconvene. Anything else, Mr. Smith, for today? Okay, we are adjourned. Have a good Christmas, everybody.